Hello. Today we're going to talk about evaluating expressions. And there's a few vocab words that we need to go over. A variable is a letter that's used to represent one or more numbers. An algebraic expression consists of numbers, variables, and operations. It does not contain an equal sign. That's the difference in between an expression and an equation. The next is power, and it's an expression that represents repeated multiplication of the same factor. So if we look at this 3 to the 4th, the 3 is known as the base. It's the bigger typed number. And then the 4 is known as the exponent. And the exponent tells how many times to write the base. The base is that factor. All right, so the first part that we're going to talk about is actually evaluating expressions. And this time we're going to use when y is equal to 2. For all 4 of these examples. Now that's not the way your assignment's going to be. It'll give you different values of that y, but for notes purposes to make it easier, I went ahead and used the same value of 2. Now, what we got to do, anytime we see a letter, we're going to need to use parentheses when we're plugging in a value for it. So this one would look like this. 6, instead of writing the y, I'm going to use parentheses. And I'm going to plug in the number 2 for the y because in the directions it said y is equal to 2. You're going to use your calculator and you're going to type in exactly what you see here. In order to do that, on the calculator itself, you're going to hit 6 and then your parenthesis is above the 8. And then you're going to do 2, close your parenthesis, which is above the number 9. And then you're going to hit enter, and enter's in the lower right hand corner. You can see here that my answer is 12. So on the assignment, you're going to write, or on the notes rather, you're going to write the number 12. When I say on the assignment, you need to show your work, this is the step that you need to include. So looking at the next one, it's a fraction. Now I'm going to show you how to enter a fraction into your calculator, but first we need to figure out what we're entering. I see a y here, and anytime you have a y, remember you're going to use parentheses to plug in a number. I just want you to get used to that. So then I'm going to use the number 2 again because here it told me y was equal to 2. Now in your calculator, you have a green button that says alpha on it. Right here, right below the blue button, alpha. So you'll hit alpha. Y equals is directly above the blue button. And then you're going to hit the number 1 because we're going to select that fraction right there. Now for a second I want to talk to you. Number 2 is for a mixed number. And remember, a mixed number looks looks exactly like this. Let me write it down for you. It's option 2. And the mixed number could be like this, 3 1/2. That 3 is that capital U is what that's talking about. So anytime you have a mixed number, you're going to use the number 2. But in our case, we're using number 1. And then we're going to type it in exactly as we see it, 8. And then to get to the denominator part, that's the lower part of that fraction, I'm going to arrow down, use parentheses and put my 2 in, and then hit enter. And then you'll see that my answer is 4. So I'm going to write the number 4 for my answer. And again, this is the work that I would expect to be shown. Looking at the last 2 examples, we're still using 2 to plug in for y. So instead of writing the y, I'm going to use parentheses, same way right here. And then I'm going to plug in that number 2. I'm going to use my calculator and type in exactly as I see it. Parentheses, 2, close your parentheses, plus 4. The reason I want you to use a calculator, because you probably know what 2 plus 4 is, I want you to get used to using a calculator on the easier things, so that way when I do get to something more complex, you already have mastered the calculator. All right, the next one is 11 minus 2. Again, I'm going to be using my parentheses, so 11 minus parentheses 2, closing my parentheses and hitting equals. That gives me 9. So that's all the work that I expect to be shown. The next section is evaluating powers. And so if you see on the calculator this button that looks kind of like an up arrow, it's actually called the caret key. And that's my exponent button. So in this question right here, it's 6 to the 4th. So I'm going to do 6, then the caret key, and then 4. And notice it's still up there in the top. If I need to enter more information, I could click over and then it comes back down. But in this case, I didn't have to, so I could just click enter, and my answer is 1,296. So there's no work to be done on my paper on this one. On the next one, it's a fraction. So again, to get to the fraction, remember it's right here, alpha y equals 1. So I'm going to do alpha y equals 1. Actually, I forgot to put my parenthesis in there, so I just arrowed that. So then 1, arrow down, 3. I'm going to arrow out of that and close my parenthesis. Then I'm going to hit my exponent, because it needs to be on the outside of the parenthesis, and then put a 2. I'm done entering everything. I'm going to click enter. And then my answer here, I don't know if you can see that, is 1/9, 1 over 9. The next problem is -4 cubed. And that's how you say the exponent of 3 is cubed. So I'm going to type in my calculator here, parenthesis, -4, closing my parenthesis, caret key to push that up to the 3. And then I'll hit enter. And it gives me the answer of -64. If I hadn't put the parentheses on there, I want to show you this real quick. -4, caret key 3. If I did not put the parenthesis on there, it still gives me -4, but if, say it was squared with the exponent of 2, -4 squared is -16, but if I put it in parentheses, it gives me a +16. So please note that it depends on if you have parentheses or not. Now that was an extra example for you, but please pay attention to those parentheses, because if they're there, they need to be entered into the calculator. All right, the last one is -3 to the 5th. Now you're going to use the negative button that's down here next to the decimal place. I'm pointing to it right here. So -3, caret key 5. Now notice in this problem, there is no parentheses, so I do not put any parentheses in the calculator. I'm going to click enter, and it tells me my answer is -243. All right, on this next section of the notes, we're putting it all together. Now I know it says independent practice, but we're just going to practice. We're not doing it independently. The first one, I'm going to type 9, caret key 3. And remember that caret key is right above that divide sign, right there. I'm going to click enter. That's 729. Now this one is an expression. Remember, anytime we see expressions that have variables and they're giving us something to use, that's what we're going to plug in place of the variable. In this case, it's x. So instead of writing that x right there, I'm going to write a parenthesis and a 4. Inside the parenthesis, I will put a 4. So then when I type it in my calculator, I need to use those parentheses. I have 15, parenthesis 4, closing my parenthesis, and I click enter, and it says it's 60. Okay, the next one is w minus z, when w equals 9.5 and z equals 2.8. Next, I'm going to use parentheses and parentheses. W in this case was 9.5 and z was 2.8. So now I'm going to type it in my calculator. Parenthesis, 9.5, closing my parenthesis, minus parenthesis, 2.8, closing my parenthesis. Looks like this. When I click enter, it gives me 6.7. Last but not least is the fraction. Now remember, it's got parentheses, so I immediately need to put a parenthesis. Parenthesis is above the 8. And then alpha, y equals 1, because it's a normal fraction. And it's 1/4, so 1, arrow down 4. I have to arrow out first, parenthesis, and then I'm going to square it. That's the fancy word for the exponent of 2, and that tells me it's 1/16. So 1/16. over 16 is my answer. On the back side of this worksheet, on the back side of this set of notes is order of operations. Now, last year you already learned order of operations, so I'm not testing over it, but I do need you to know how to put it into the calculator. So all you're going to do on this problem is type it in directly as you see it. 20 minus 10 divide 2. And so my answer is 15 when you type it directly in. Anytime you have just a numerical expression, you could type it straight into your calculator and save yourself some time. Here's the next problem. Again, I'm going to make sure it's exactly as I see it. 5 minus 3 parenthesis 8 divide 4 closing my parenthesis. That answer was -1. So on this part, again, you do not have to show work. I'm not worried about that because you were tested over that last year. All right, so then this one was 7 plus, so you can see my calculator, 7 plus 3 and the exponent of 3. Now, notice here, I don't know if you can see it in the video, see that it's got an arrow up in the exponent and it's pointing to the right? You need to use this arrow over button right here. I pushed it one time and then it dropped it down to a bigger cursor. That's what you need. So that way you can continue on here. Divide 9 minus 8. When I click equals, it does give me the answer of 2. Now you're going to have a whole little section on this type of problem. Remember, it's a fraction altogether. So to get to the fraction, I'm going to hit alpha y equals 1. So I'm going to do alpha y equals is up here in the top left-hand corner, and then I'm going to push the number 1. Now it looks like a fraction in my calculator. I'm going to type in everything I see in the numerator. That's the top part of the fraction. 2 parenthesis 8 minus 5, and I'll close my parenthesis. Then I'm going to arrow down, and then I'm going to type 27 divided by 9, and then I'm going to click enter. Notice that this section right here looks identical to what's on my worksheet here. Sorry for the shaking. And the answer on that one was 2. All right, the bottom section of notes, this is the last section. It's kind of putting everything together. And notice I have an X there, and I have something to plug in for X. But I want you to remember, please, anytime you see a variable and you're substituting or plugging in a number for it, you need to use parentheses. If not, it's going to look like 34, and 3 times 4 is so different than 34. All right, so I'm going to type it in my calculator exactly as I see it. So it's 3 parenthesis 4 minus 5 equals, and it gives me the number 7. This is the work that you must show right here using your parentheses to get your answer. Next, I'm going to do 84 plus 4, and then I see an X. So instead of writing the X, I'm going to write parentheses, and then that's squared with an exponent of 2. Oh, sorry. Right there. Now, the X right now, it says that it's equal to 2. I'm going to plug in a 2 there. Now I'm going to type this in my calculator exactly as I see it. So 84 plus 4 parenthesis 2, and that is squared. Enter. So my answer is 100. Hopefully you're getting these same types of numbers. If you're not, you can reach out to me by email, and I can try to help you out. All right, the next one is 5x cubed. So again, I'm going to use my parentheses for my x. I'll come back in and fill it all in. Minus 2, and then I got another set of parentheses because I got another x. My x, it tells me right here, it was 3. So I'm going to write a 3 inside my parentheses. Now, I can type that directly in because there's no more letters into my calculator here. 5 parentheses 3 cubed minus 2 parentheses 3. Oops. See, notice I did not arrow out of it. It looks like it's all small. I don't know if you can see that there? Yeah, it's all small. I didn't arrow out. So I'm just going to hit clear, and it takes me back to that point. That needs to be a 3. Now, do you see that arrow out button right there? I need to push the arrow over button, and that drops it all back down so it's not all up in the exponent part. And my answer here is 129. All right, the last problem. It's a big fraction, so I'm going to first write it out. Instead of writing my y's, I'm using my parentheses. And then I'm going to plug in the numbers for y. So that's a 7. Now it's a fraction. I'm done writing everything. I need to figure out how to type it into my calculator. To type it in my calculator, I'm going to push alpha, which is the green button, y equals, and then 1. I'm going to type it in exactly as I see it. It's 9 parentheses 7 minus 7, and then it's arrowing down, 2 parentheses 7, closing my parenthesis, and then I'm going to click enter. So that is the number 4. Okay? Today your assignment is linked on Google Classroom, and I hope you have a great day.